Hello, welcome to MJR RPG, a podcast for, well, let's be honest, just Call of Cthulhu reviews at this point. The following is a review of the Japanese Call of Cthulhu scenario, Unseasonable Blooming and Minuet, or狂い咲きとメヌエット, written by Aka and Dom. It is the third entry in the Japonism collection of modern-day Japan scenarios put out by the Victims of INT Group, or INT no犠牲者卓. A note that Minuet and Japonism in general is currently only available in Japanese. But with machine translation, a dictionary, and maybe bits of this review, you can probably make it into a workable English or whatever language of your choice. As always, the first bit of this review is spoiler light for players and keepers, while the second half is completely full of spoilers, and I will warn off players before I indulge. In short, Minuet is a strong missing person investigation through modern social media and a deep dive into Heian-era Japanese history. While the preceding Japonism scenarios, Do Gods Dream of Digital Drugs, or Kamigami wa Denshi Doragu no Yume o Miru ka, and Chanting Suture Network, or Dokyo Netwaku, take a science fiction techno-thriller approach, Minuet is more firmly rooted in modern-day technology, most notably Twitter. On the other hand, it is deeply rooted in history and mythology. Combined with a straightforward missing persons case, Minuet has the most classic feel of the Japonism pack. Set it a century earlier and in Massachusetts, swap Twitter for stacks of conspicuously specific letters and journals, and change the actual historic events in question with an early American settler or native stories, and you have yourself a classic-era Call of Cthulhu scenario. The scenario text takes up 10 pages, including a few stat blocks and character portraits, and a couple maps. There are once again no pre-generated investigators. Most characters will get along without much issues, though having some characters with strong history, language, Japanese, and computer use skills would be ideal. The runtime is estimated at 3 to 4 hours for 3 to 5 investigators, and once again my playtime was just short of 4 hours. Depending on how the ending scene goes, or how open the keeper is to improvisation, and how much free rein the players are given to muck about in investigating, I could see a longer playtime being very much possible. Like its sibling scenarios, the bulk of Minuet is freeform investigation, this time around the fictional valley city of Hodaka. It's a well laid out investigation, having plenty of avenues for the players to take without worrying about dead ends, and with an initial starting clue and a friendly NPC that can help things along if need be, players will always find somewhere to proceed to next. The setting is well integrated into the story and the real world history, and the scenario gives maps and descriptions to help flesh out the city. For groups looking for some modern day investigation, as well as those that love Japanese history, Unseasonable Blooming and Minuet is a fine addition and conclusion to the Japonism collection. Japonism can be purchased on booth.pm. It is currently only available in Japanese. The following section is full of spoilers, so if you're looking to play this scenario someday, I would suggest stopping here. Most of Minuet is freeform investigation with clear-cut clues and leads for the players to find and follow, and as such isn't particularly difficult to run. The ending, though, can be extremely difficult for unprepared and unskilled investigators if they missed a particular clue, and the keeper should be prepared to throw increasingly obvious hints in the player's way if they don't pick up on it themselves. The scenario opens with the investigators accompanying a friend, Junichi Uda, and his high schooler sister, Kotomi, to Hodaka, a town they spent time in as children. Their family maintains an old house there, a mansion really, that generally sits unused. I would suggest immediately having the friend explain the history of the guest house, rather than wait for the investigators to ask about it or discover some clue later on. The house was built for Emperor Uda after he abdicated in the late 9th century, when he was on pilgrimage in Hodaka, and who the modern Uda family are direct descendants of, and who still have the Uda surname, obviously. The house and the Uda family are extremely important clues later in the scenario, and the sooner the players know of them, the better the chances they'll find the solution, big air quotes around that, to the scenario's conclusion themselves without the keeper forcing it on them. The sister soon separates from the group to meet with an old friend, but later in the night there is a news report of another missing local high schooler, prompting Junichi to call Kotomi. She answers, but asks for help and says she's freezing right before the call cuts off. As Junichi goes to the police, he asks the investigator to try to find her. And we're off to the races. Hunting through social media, the players find numerous clues throughout the town, leading to interviews to help them build a timeline and idea of what is going on. They'll find out that other high school students are taking pictures of a blossoming plum tree for good luck in their studies. Kind of odd given that it's December and plum trees don't blossom until February. Once they know where to go, which is up a mountain trail behind a shrine, the investigators will be able to head straight up to the scenario's conclusion if they want to bowl straight ahead. The climax, though, is liable to be a TPK if the investigators are not prepared. Waiting for them, looming over a dying and freezing Kotomi, is a living tree that sucks the warmth and dex of anything nearby, swats and grabs with its branches, and shoots lightning that can paralyze a target on a hit. And if it consumes 300 dex, an evil spirit is birthed out of it, bringing calamity upon Hodaka. While the tree only has 25 HP and a single point of armor, given the setting, the investigators are unlikely to have firearms, and approaching the tree is difficult. If they brought up herbicide, chainsaws, or some other sort of weapon, they may stand a fighting chance, but it would still be a bloody fight. And even if they do put up a fight, there's a good chance the tree will automatically consume enough dex to birth its evil spirit before the investigators manage to kill it. Ideally, the investigators will have found enough information to know what they are heading into, including a secret stash of notes and artifacts in the Uda house's attic. There, they can learn of the true history of the area, Emperor Uda, and Sugawara no Michizane, the sort of kind of villain of the scenario. Again, air quotes around villain. With the artifact, they can seal away the spirit and return the tree to dormancy, but it would still be risky to approach that tree. I think it is important to see the Uda house and family being important early on, and keep reminding the players as they explore. Otherwise, they aren't likely to poke around the house's attic and head up into the mountains without learning what is actually going on or how to properly deal with it. While a bad, again air quotes, ending, with the spirit being birthed out of the tree and raining lightning and disaster down on the town, can be an effective ending, I do think the impact is lessened if the investigators don't know why it's happening, and that information is locked behind the attic clue. If all else fails, the friendly Junichi NPC could be used to brute force the clue, going up into the attic and bringing down the box of goodies from the investigators to poke through. One other point to consider is allowing the investigators to leave the climax and come back later. An unprepared group may see the tree and decide, nope, not ready yet. Depending on the time constraints and pacing, the keeper could force an ending by having Kotomi be near death, likely to freeze out in minutes. But if there is still time available, you could say Kotomi seems to be in a hibernation-like state, and might be alright for another few hours or a day, giving the investigators time to get equipment, help, or find the artifact. When I was running the scenario, the group had the police go up the mountain first. But when the investigators arrived at the tree, they found a pair of officers also freezing, meaning the tree started with an extra shot of dex, and bringing closer to birthing its evil spirit. There's not really any way of warning the players about this without being overly heavy-handed, so I'd suggest having a maximum of 2 officers go up the mountain, unless the group really forces the issue. Overall, Unseasonable Blooming and Minuet is a strong investigative scenario in a unique location with a fun mix of social media and classical Japanese history, while also having a complex physical/combative mythos threat to overcome. Along with its sibling scenarios, well recommended. Once again, Japonism can be purchased on booth.pm, though it is currently only available in Japanese. Thank you for listening. Thank you to Cryochamber, as always, for use of their album Cthulhu. And until next time, have a good one.